to not give up, and that there can also be beauty in the struggle, and there can be a connection in the adversity.
We've finally uncovered more details about that incredibly dodgy subpoena, and Ron is back in the picture. Blake Lively is reportedly in a downward spiral after Justin Baldoni exposed the truth behind her fake text message scandal. From bogus subpoenas to behind-the-scenes media manipulation, everything is unraveling fast. What began as discreet damage control has snowballed into a full-scale meltdown, and this time the evidence is far too solid to twist. Whether the lawsuits against those unnamed individuals were dropped, or the New York Times simply got caught up in the act, the fallout is clear. Blake is losing control. She's lashing out at everyone as her perfectly polished courtroom image collapses in real time. The so-called fairy tale has shattered wide open, and she's not going quietly. Let's take it back to 27 September 2024. That's when things first started to look suspicious. Out of nowhere, a mysterious filing appeared in a New York court, Vansen Inc. versus Johns 110. It sounded less like a legal dispute and more like the start of a psychological thriller. Nobody had a clue what it meant at first, but that filing set the stage for the chaos that followed. Now we finally know what that mysterious case actually was. It stemmed from Vansen Inc. versus John Doe's 110, except there was no missing person. Just a missing target, no names, no faces, nothing but a list of anonymous John Does. The lawsuit had no clear purpose or story. Apart from one telling detail, it granted Blake's team subpoena power. In other words, it wasn't about winning a case, it was about digging up dirt. As people started looking deeper into who or what Vansen was, the truth came out. The company turned out to belong to Blake herself. And who's running this entire operation? None other than Blake Reynolds, or rather, Blake Lively, as we know her. That's her legal married name. In this bizarre bit of courtroom theater, she wasn't just the plaintiff. She was also the CEO, secretary, and chief financial officer of Vansen Inc. Honestly, she might as well have called herself head of snacks, too. It wasn't a real business. It was a one-woman scam factory in full swing. Public records even link Ryan Reynolds, yes, Deadpool himself, to this phantom company. And here's the kicker. The registered address for Vansen Incorporated is the same as their home address. Because of course, if you're going to stage a legal charade, you might as well rope your husband into it too. It's not just shady, it's pure Twilight Zone, complete with a tax ID number. Any solicitor will tell you, you simply do not file a complaint if you don't know the name of the person you're suing, unless you're deliberately trying to conceal their identity for some particular reason. And if you're angry enough to take them to court, chances are you're not exactly worried about protecting their privacy. Then things turned downright cinematic. On 20 December 2020, just a day after the mysterious filing of the Vansen case, Blake Lively hit the world with her big official CRD complaint. So what was the point of Vansen? Simple, it was a decoy. A calculated move to obtain confidential information, throw a grenade at Justin Baldoni's reputation, and quietly disappear as though nothing had ever happened. If this were a chess match, Blake wasn't just playing. She was cheating and flipping the entire board mid-game. Even legal experts raised their eyebrows. Both Brian Friedman and Lively's own legal team commented on the issue. Friedman told the Daily Mail, "This appears to be an end around, skirting the legal process to secretly obtain documents without notifying anyone." Now, let's talk about Vansen Incorporated itself, because if you thought it was just a dodgy lawsuit, you're in for a ride. The company had been completely dormant for 11 years. Not a product, not a statement, not even a half-hearted LinkedIn update. Then, suddenly, it clawed its way out of the corporate graveyard like a zombie with one mission: to act as Blake's personal attack dog in her revenge campaign. You don't need a law degree to smell how rotten that move was. Vansen Inc. had been inactive for over a decade. Yet Blake Reynolds, her legal married name, was listed as CEO. The question then became, how can we directly connect Vansen Inc. to Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds? The answer lies in the paperwork. The company's registered address is identical to the couple's own home address, and the same legal firm representing Blake and Ryan in their lawsuit against Justin Baldoni filed the Vansen documents too. And that's not all. The lawsuit itself was a masterclass in vagueness, accusing an unspecified group of anonymous John Does of violating nearly every corporate ethics law imaginable, yet never clarifying what they allegedly did, when it happened, or even who they were. It was, in essence, a lawsuit against thin air. But make no mistake, this was never about justice. It was a calculated backdoor maneuver, dressed up in legal theatrics, with one clear objective: to serve a subpoena to a very specific person, Stephanie Jones. And if that name sounds familiar, it's because she once worked as Justin Baldoni's PR representative. So it's hardly surprising that she suddenly found herself at the heart of this subpoena circus. It's all public information, and frankly, there's no other explanation for how Stephanie Jones ended up being subpoenaed. Legal experts have already labeled this sort of maneuver a straw lawsuit, a tactic that's surprisingly common in celebrity legal circles, often used to smear or manipulate opponents while keeping hands seemingly clean. Now, Stephanie Jones's part in all this could fill an entire spin-off of its own. She'd worked with Justin Baldoni until August 2024, and then, quite suddenly, in October that same year, she was hit with a subpoena. What followed was astonishing. She began handing over messages, emails, and private material as if she were dishing out sweets at Halloween. No resistance, no hesitation, just, here you go. Enjoy destroying my former client. Some team player, that. Except if Jones truly knew nothing about this ploy, she'd have fought it, or at the very least alerted Wayfarer Studios. But that didn't happen. Instead, the operation was uncomfortably selective. Only one phone was subpoenaed, belonging to a woman named Jennifer Al. The rest of the PR firm? Untouched, invisible, almost magically exempt. If this had really been about gathering evidence, you'd expect a much wider sweep. Instead, they went full sniper mode. This wasn't legal procedure. It was a hit job disguised as one. And here's the twist. Stephanie Jones is married to Jason Hewitt, a senior partner at WME, the same agency representing, you guessed it, Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. So much for avoiding conflicts of interest. These days, it seems they're just fodder for lunch conversation. Let's not pretend Jones was oblivious either. You don't just wake up one morning thinking, I might violate NDAs today and launch a legal torpedo at my client's enemies. Insiders whisper that she may have had her own agenda. Perhaps she was bitter that Baldoni left the company. Maybe she wanted to undermine Jennifer Al, or maybe she just wanted to curry favor with the Hollywood power circle over at WME. Whatever her motive, the rumor is she had access to sensitive material. And rather than delete it, she metaphorically leaned over and whispered, Hey Blake, fancy ruining some careers? According to reports, once Blake learned that private messages existed, she didn't waste a second. She allegedly revived her dormant zombie company, Vansen Inc., filed a fake lawsuit, secured a subpoena, and had the evidence hand-delivered as if she were ordering takeaway. And just like that, chaos was unleashed. Of course, this story doesn't end there. Legal analysts have been blunt. The entire setup reeks of orchestration. The lawsuit disappeared the moment it had served its purpose, and almost immediately after, Blake's official CRD complaint landed in court. Right on cue. That's not strategy. That's scheming wrapped neatly in paperwork. She effectively used a ghost company as her own private intelligence agency, then buried it again once the mission was complete. Vansen Inc., a long inactive entity with no genuine business operations, was used as a front to intimidate and harass third parties under the guise of discovery. And the legal community isn't buying a word of it. Experts have outright called it a straw lawsuit, one with no intention of winning, filed purely to manipulate the system. Meanwhile, Blake continues to stroll down red carpets, portraying herself as Hollywood's next humanitarian saint, while behind the scenes, she's reportedly stockpiling secrets like burner phones at a mob trial. This isn't just messy, and it's calculated, cold, and corporate. And it's only a matter of time before it all blows up in her face. You know what's absolutely hilarious? Blake Lively's legal team genuinely seemed to think they could reinvent the judicial system as though it were some Pinterest mood board. Let's sue nobody, they said. Let's skip the details. Let's just vibe a lawsuit into existence. Because apparently, in Blake's universe, you can file a case without even knowing who you're suing. No names, no faces, no facts. Just a stack of fancy legal stationery and a vague sense of entitlement. 4 days after that hollow filing, they issued a subpoena to Stephanie Jones, who, rather conveniently, complied without question. She had her own axe to grind, after all. This was the Vansen Incorporated strategy in a nutshell. A lawsuit so empty, so devoid of credibility, it could have been rejected by Judge Judy before she'd even had her morning tea. No hearings, no defendants, no real narrative, just a phantom case that served one shady purpose before vanishing into thin air, much like Blake's sense of accountability. And that purpose, subpoenas, plain and simple. It wasn't about justice, and it was about control, about using power to intimidate, silence, and dig up whatever dirt they could find on Justin Baldoni. Vansen Inc. wasn't fighting to win in court. They were fighting for access to private messages, emails, and communications they could weaponize later. The playbook was simple. Pose as legitimate, secure the subpoena, and disappear before anyone could ask too many questions. And the motive? To sidestep a non-disclosure agreement. Stephanie Jones, the PR world's own Benedict Arnold, was bound by an NDA and legally barred from handing over Baldoni's private messages. So, what did Blake's team allegedly do? They handed her a subpoena from a fake lawsuit so she'd comply under legal pretense. It wasn't clever. It wasn't lawful. It was just shady. A transaction dressed up as justice, designed to harvest private material while the victims scrambled for answers. Meanwhile, the messages and emails pried from Jones's colleague's phone somehow made their way to the New York Times. And here's the most insulting part. Justin Baldoni wasn't even informed. No letter. No email. Not even a token heads up saying, by the way, we're seizing your private communications. That's not lawyering. That's legal pickpocketing. Civil procedure explicitly requires notification. Yet Blake's team apparently skipped that step entirely. These so-called discovery tactics weren't about uncovering truth. They were about fishing for off-limits information, manipulating reputations, and bending ethics until they snapped. And if you think the New York Times knew how that subpoena was obtained, they didn't. They cited it in their coverage, unknowingly becoming part of a PR puppet show choreographed by Lively's team. Using unlawfully obtained material to sway public opinion isn't journalism, it's gossip in a designer suit. Once that subpoena landed, Blake's next move was as predictable as it was ruthless. She allegedly handed the material straight to her favorite outlet, and almost instantly, a hit piece detonated across the internet. The timing was flawless. Too flawless. The lawsuit vanishes, the subpoena does its job, and boom, the New York Times article drops like a PR missile. This wasn't chaos. It was choreography. Every move plotted, every headline prepped. They made third parties believe they were legally obliged to comply when in truth they weren't. And Blake's team didn't just leak information, they curated it. Every message, every screenshot, every scrap of text was carefully chosen to make Baldoni look like the villain of his own story. Context deleted, nuance erased. It wasn't reporting, it was reputation warfare. From the fake lawsuit to the hand-delivered subpoenas and the orchestrated media rollout, every piece fit perfectly. This wasn't some accidental PR fumble. It was a calculated, coldly efficient campaign to rewrite reality itself, a smear operation disguised as legal action. And honestly, it's shocking that something this elaborate, this suspicious, could happen in plain sight. It's not law. It's performance art with subpoenas. And the audience is only just starting to realize they've been watching a script all along. It was never truly about justice or vindication. It was always about controlling the story. Every leak, every media hit, every conveniently anonymous source was simply ammunition for Blake's CRD complaint. Her team didn't build a case on evidence. They engineered perception. They weaponized timing, curated exposure, and disguised the entire operation as noble advocacy. Beneath the surface, it was nothing more than public relations warfare in a trench coat, strategic defamation dressed up as moral righteousness. The entire ordeal appears to have been designed to attack Justin without ever allowing him or his legal team the opportunity to respond, which feels not only unethical, but downright manipulative. This is where the supposed clever tactic turns into a professional disaster. What Blake's camp treated as a savvy move could in fact be grounds for serious disciplinary action. Abusive process isn't some minor oversight. It's the kind of misconduct that can end legal careers. If it's proven that the subpoenas were falsified or misused, her lawyers could lose their licenses, and Blake herself could face criminal exposure for conspiracy or fraud. Karma, it seems, isn't just approaching. She's stretching, hydrating, and cueing the soundtrack. There's a clear rule here. You cannot file fake lawsuits to trick people into handing over private information. That's not clever lawyering. It's fraud with a fresh coat of paint. If investigators confirm this misconduct, Blake's legal team could be struck from the case entirely, and they know it. That's why Brian Friedman, Justin Baldoni's fierce attorney, came out swinging, calling it exactly what it is, an attempt to bypass due process. Translation: you cheated, you broke the system, and now someone's coming to expose it. If Friedman digs deeper, and it's safe to assume he will, this could devastate Blake's entire case. Should a judge determine that the lawsuit was merely a facade to dig up dirt, every piece of her so-called evidence could be tossed out. Without the subpoenaed material, her CRD complaint begins to look less like a civil rights crusade and more like a desperate PR stunt. And that's before the potential fallout. Sanctions, fines, penalties, public humiliation. Friedman told the Daily Mail, "This appears to be an end-around, skirting the process to secretly obtain documents without notice. That would be an abusive process, and we intend to take all action allowable under the law." Then there's her legal firm, Manet, the architects of this entire operation. If found complicit in knowingly filing a sham lawsuit, they could be removed from representation altogether. Imagine going from defending Hollywood royalty to facing disciplinary complaints because you couldn't say no to Blake's latest scheme. Was it worth it? Hardly. And yet one has to ask, why do it at all? They must have known this could be uncovered. They knew that by referencing a subpoena, someone would eventually find it. So if it was such a risky and unethical maneuver, why press ahead? But let's be honest, none of this is truly surprising. Blake's entire legal approach has been like one of those immaculate cakes on Pinterest. Flawless from the outside, but hollow and collapsing once cut. Her team have been playing legal twister in heels, assuming the rules wouldn't apply to them. The irony is that she's now guilty of the very shady tactics